Yes, sir.
I just have one question. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but in the case of this area, doesn't one of the elementary schools have where, depending on the student's address, there are different high schools?
Yes.
Yes.
And a different high school that's in a completely different district that has nothing to really do with the other district.
And a different region from mine.
Oh boy. Okay. That I didn't know.
So in that case, some students go to Maine South.
So I'm going Ridgewood.
And so Maine South is in the North Cook version of my office. And so in that case, that's part of the petition. That would be something that have to be worked out in terms of
another school district would have to work.
Not necessarily, because right now it works, right? That half of the kids, well, not half, but some of the kids from Penoyer go there and some go there. And so it wouldn't have to necessarily be different, but it's going to be part of the conversation because it's about tax rates.
It's another group involved in the process.
Yep, exactly. Yes.
Is there a way to petition to give those students that are going to the other school, using us as an example, that are going to Maine South to redistrict and come to Richmond?
There is.
I would, if it was mine, if I moved there to go to Park Ridge, and then you told me this, that would be a done deal for me. I'd be out. It would be a done deal.
So,
Not do it.
Well, I'm talking about the people that are in Norwich.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, yeah, but the houses that are in Norwich, those students go to
to
Maine.
keep it as it was, keep it as it is. It can stay as it is, right?
It can stay as it is. I'm just wondering if there's a benefit to the community if you're talking about consolidation. Is there a benefit to reconfigure so that now all of the Norwich students now go to the Norwich High School?
so I want to,
Because the house is
Like if I were,
If
if I were those parents, that would be.
It's not just one.
She's just asking if it's possible.
Right.
so I just want to answer the question about procedure.
Okay,
What you proposed could not be done here.
okay.
Way back at the beginning, it talks about entire, it uses the word entire very directly. So it's the consolidation is taking two complete districts as they are, not changing any of the outside boundaries. There is a process for what you're describing, and we call that detachment and annexation. It's very similar to this, except that it doesn't flow through me as a decision maker. There's a 3-member panel that hears evidence on both sides, because in a detachment situation, it's always some degree of contentious, because Maine South doesn't want to lose that property value, and they don't want to lose those taxes. So they're going to show up and say, wait, we like those kids from Norwich, right? Any detachment is like that, and I've been part of several of those. It's typically like a subdivision that says we would like to be part of this group, not that group. So to make that happen would be a secondary procedure. It could be parallel, but I think that would confound things. But just the little bit of energy that was in the room there is exactly this idea of local control. And so in Illinois, there are times where it's hard for me, as I travel all over the state, it's hard for me dealing with 852 districts. On the other hand, did I do that?
I don't think so.
On the other hand, as a parent of 2 kids, I liked some of those choices. I chose to live places I wanted to live for reasons, So, and some districts, there are districts around that have generations of families that have been in the area for a long time, and parents, and then the kids, and So I celebrate that idea of local control and the community school or the community district. But there are also challenges, especially in today's world. And that's exactly why we're here having a conversation this evening. Yes, sir.
So they're not codependent, so the districts can consolidate, but the whole, if you go to Maine South or North Ridgewood, that can stay the same.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Question, as long as everything gets back to the local control with the voting, if it goes through this whole process and the community does their best effort to educate the community, and everything gets approved by you and the the
State
state
superintendent.
superintendent, and then goes to the community and fails. Has that happened?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it really is important, if a community is looking to have this successful, they need to line up all their ducks in a row properly, educate everybody as best they can. I don't know what kind of a program, are there suggestions from other communities, or is there people we can reach out to if this is something that's gonna be a go? I have no idea, we're just here for informational purposes.
Right.
But are there some rules and some guidelines that people can follow to say, this is what worked for us to get our community on board? Not only did those working on this agree that this is the best interest of the students, because that's really what this is all about.
Right.
Best interest of the students and how it's gonna affect the community financially.
Mm-hmm. So there are not necessarily rules and guidelines. I can tell you one consolidation I know sort of out near Sterling, Rock Island, out west of here. They did a lot, as they were designing the petition, they did a lot of community meetings. They did town hall meetings. They were constantly seeking feedback from the community, A, on how to make the petition really strong, and B, to kind of be testing the water to see if we go to election, is there strong strong opposition or other people. So the group I'm thinking about, that was something where two school boards said, just to survive, we've got to do this. And so they did lots of community, and they got a lot of feedback from the community, lots of chart paper on the wall, and what ideas make sense, and listen to folks as they established the petition, which was kind of their way of informing the community. So instead of waiting and then doing a campaign afterwards, they had already built that in, which perhaps made a stronger petition. And I do believe that the superintendent from there would tell you they changed direction several times after listening to people. And the example of class size is a real example. You know, if you're having a conversation in front of a group in a town hall meeting, you say, well, we could save $200,000 by raising the class size of kindergarten up to 28. And you get feedback from everybody like, whoa, that's not what we moved in here for. We're not in favor of that. Oh, okay, let's rethink that. So already you've added into your petition. Or you get people that just say, no, I'm not interested in having my kids shipped across town, or eliminating a building and raising class size, or, yeah, I think that would be great, or, you know, what does that do for, this is more so at high school levels, but what are you going to do with the teens? What are you going to call the mascot? You know, those are things that are important to people. Those legacy kinds of questions, and they come up as real conversations. Like, what does that do to our conference? What does it do? All of those factors can be part of the discussion. But I think the people I have in mind would tell you to involve folks all the way along and find out whether it's worth it to even do a petition, and if so, what's important to them. And if state superintendent or I are reviewing, you say 15 town hall meetings with these kinds of feedback and leading to these decisions, I think that gives some strength. And it also tells you how fervent people feel about consolidating or not, and maybe it's not worth doing because you're never going to pass the vote. So either way, it strengthens. Yes, sir.
There's a lot of leaps and hurdles to this consolidation issue, and it's a 2-year process. When's the last time you saw a successful consolidation of a school district?
So, not in Cook County, but within the last 5 years, there have been 3 or 4.
Was it an elimination of a one schoolhouse district?
Not elimination, but combination of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got a lot of duplication of efforts. You got a one schoolhouse district that has a superintendent running it, and a principal running, and administrators, and they're all $150,000, $175,000 a year, and on and on and on. When a larger school district can incorporate this.
So this is a common argument, and oftentimes the impetus for the discussion is, you know, the economy of size and can we be more efficient, and that leads to great conversations. You know, in many situations, people find they can save some money, and then they end up spending that somewhere else in transportation. That's something that there's another complicating factor that eats up the money, because now I have these two rural schools that are 30 miles apart, and I close one, but I've got to bus everybody over there, and the cost comes up. Now, that's not the case here, but oftentimes as you get into it, you start to see all those nuances. A little bit bigger districts that have consolidated, there are some where an elementary and a high school consolidated to make a K-12. With that same kind of argument, what they found was they kept both the administrators because they needed somebody for an assistant superintendent to do curriculum, because now the district was bigger, they needed more help. So all of that's part of the planning. And that's exactly the case that most people start looking at consolidation is, can we save money, be more efficient? And that's the discussion. You know, I think that's the discussion we have. Yes, sir.
Because we're all thinking of two different districts. I'll just give some information on it with a question. So Benoyer has 430 students at a tax rate of 2.496, which is just under 2.5. District 80 has 1,132 students at a tax rate of 2.214. Let's just say the stars were aligned, consolidation happened, or the petition was put together. And what you were saying earlier, the likelihood of 2.496 dropping to 2.214 District 80, and everyone's paying a reduced tax rate is very unlikely. It'd be more so a merge or getting closer to, both getting closer to the 2.496.
Right. Most of the experience that I've seen is it's somewhere in between. It's like a regression to the mean. And so it's not quite, because if you do have some of these economies, it can be lower than the mean. But typically the lowest one is moving up. Same thing with teacher salary. And that's part of the equation, is that to the notion of, I'm going to eliminate one of my superintendents, but I've got a salary scale that I've got 300 teachers that need to move up on the salary scale to match where the other salary scale is. All of a sudden I've got all this new growth in cost here. So I'm not saying that always happens. I'm just saying that's kind of what happens in this 2-year process, is to figure out I can save here, I'm going to have to spend a little more here. What does that all look like? But almost always the tax rate of the lowest goes up some and the highest comes down some. Yes.
Well, that can be engineered though by the group of 10, right? The petitioners can design that. It's not, there's no rule that you have to take the mean and divide by pi or whatever. I love using pi for a joke.
Serve pi.
But you can, it can be designed that way. So depending on all of the economical considerations, contracts, teacher contracts, union, it can be engineered where, okay, in our particular situation, maybe it is lower. Mm-hmm. We can make it that way depending on where we're at with the budget. Is that correct?
That was why I used this overly simplified, because you can imagine, I'm going to be a little extreme, okay? So the Committee of 10 and the people who are designing, the Committee of 10 is really an interim group that helps make the transition. But you're building your petition and you say, in our new magical school district, we're going to have class sizes of 10. Right? So the budget goes way, way up. Whatever decisions you're making here, less administrators, different teacher pay, whatever decisions you're making on this end up dictating how much your tax rate's going to be. If you figure out what the operating budget's going to be, you kind of backward map. And it's just similar enough, like I was mentioning, 80 to 85% of our expenditures are in personnel. So we really have, maybe 18% of fudge. Well, where do those personnel numbers end up? And so you're right, there's no rule. And I want to be really clear, it's not absolute how much tax rates would go down or up. I'm just kind of using it. It's almost a common sense response to the idea that there's not a whole lot of leeway and you're going to have to be adding and subtracting some things. So chances are there's that kind of motion. But you're exactly right. If the community wanted to pass a petition where the class sizes were 50 in every room and you fired half the teachers, the budget would come way down. But I doubt that's going to pass the.
We need more drama in this thing.
Yes.